and Mark quit that night and refuses to go near Route 66 after dark. And if this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Storyteller for more true horror stories that refuse to stay buried.
Welcome back to Storyteller, where true horror stories from the real world crawl out of the dark. This story comes from a small town in Pennsylvania, where Route 61 cuts through thick woods and forgotten history. And late one winter night, a long-haul truck driver named Mark stopped at an abandoned gas station after seeing a woman standing alone by the road waving frantically. Her clothes soaked as if from rain, though the night was dry. And when Mark rolled down his window, she whispered, "Don't drive past the mile marker," before vanishing in front of his headlights, shaken but assuming. Exhaustion, Mark continued driving until his radio crackled with static and every warning light on his truck lit up at once, forcing him to pull over exactly at the mile marker she had mentioned, where he noticed dozens of old crosses hidden among the trees, some broken, some burned, and suddenly the smell of gasoline filled the air as ghostly headlights appeared behind him, though no engine sound followed. Then the same woman appeared in his side mirror, screaming for him to run as a phantom. Truck slammed into his trailer and disappeared, leaving his rig untouched but surrounded by deep tire tracks burned into the asphalt. And when police arrived, they told Mark that over 20 fatal crashes had happened at that exact mile marker since the 1950s, most involving a runaway truck completely empty. Following protocol, Daniel stopped the train between stations and walked back through the cars, each one silent and dark, until he reached car 3 and found every seat soaked as if from heavy rain, with muddy footprints leading to a single occupied seat at the far end, where the intercom handset was hanging off the hook and gently swaying. Suddenly the train doors slammed shut and the PA system announced the next stop in a distorted tone, listing a station that had been closed since 2001 after a fatal derailment. And as the train lurched forward on its own, Daniel saw reflections in the windows. Dozens of passengers staring straight ahead, their faces pale and unmoving. Story unsettled you? Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Storyteller, because some passengers never get off. Welcome back to Storyteller, where real horror stories prove that some places never forget. This true story comes from a small town in Oregon, where a night security guard named Lucas took a temporary job watching an abandoned elementary school scheduled for demolition, and during his first week he noticed that every night at exactly 11:43 p.m. the intercom in the empty hallways would click on and play faint children's laughter. Assuming it was faulty wiring, Lucas reported it, but technicians found nothing wrong. And one night while checking the classrooms, he heard tiny footsteps following him, stopping whenever he stopped, until he reached room 12, where the chalkboard slowly filled with the words, "We're still here," written by an unseen hand. And suddenly the intercom blared with dozens of children chanting his name, though he had never told anyone who he was. And security footage later showed Lucas running from the building screaming as classroom doors slammed shut behind him one by one. And when police reviewed old records, they discovered the school had been built over a 1940s orphanage that burned down during a winter storm, killing every child inside. And locals admitted the school was closed after teachers reported hearing roll call answered by voices that didn't exist, and Lucas refused to return, but demolition crews later quit when fresh handprints appeared in concrete poured overnight. If this true American horror story sent chills down your spine, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Storyteller, because more real stories are waiting for you in the dark. On a freezing October night in rural Pennsylvania, a rideshare driver named Mark accepted a late pickup from an old farmhouse marked only by a flickering porch light, and when the passenger, a pale woman in a dated blue coat, slid into the back seat, she gave no destination, only whispering, "Just keep driving." So Mark headed toward the empty highway where cornfields blurred into darkness and the radio crackled with static, and as miles passed he noticed the temperature dropping fast, his breath fogging the windshield, and every time he checked the rearview mirror the woman's face looked slightly wrong, her eyes reflecting no light, until suddenly she asked him to stop near a rusted bridge locals called Dead Man's Crossing, a place tied to a 1996 crash where a woman drowned after her car plunged into the river. And when Mark turned to confirm the drop-off, the back seat was empty, soaked with icy water and smelling of rot, his phone lighting up at the same moment with a missed call notification from an unknown number, the voicemail playing on its own with a woman's voice whispering, "You didn't stop in time." And days later Mark learned from the sheriff that multiple drivers had reported the same passenger over the years, all on the anniversary of the accident, all finding water in their cars. And now Mark refuses night rides, because some nights his phone still rings at 11:47 p.m., and the caller ID simply reads, "Behind you." And if this story kept you listening, like, share, and subscribe to Storyteller for more real American horror stories. Welcome back to Storyteller, where real horror stories are told exactly as they were experienced, and tonight's true account comes from a public hospital in rural Missouri, where in 2020 a night janitor named Kevin was assigned to clean an abandoned wing closed after a fatal fire years earlier, at exactly 2:02 a.m. The elevator opened on that floor by itself even though service had been disabled, and Kevin heard the soft beeping of heart monitors echoing down the dark hallway despite the rooms being empty. As he pushed his cart forward, motion-activated lights flickered on one by one, revealing hospital beds neatly made with scorched sheets still stained from the fire, and then his radio crackled with a nurse's voice calmly saying, "Code Blue, Room 214, a room that no longer existed." When Kevin reached the end of the hall, he saw a child sitting upright on a bed, staring at him with burned skin and an oxygen mask fused to their face, and the child slowly raised a finger and pointed behind Kevin, where a reflection in the glass showed flames climbing the walls even though the air was cold and silent. Kevin ran, but the elevator doors refused to close until the radio whispered, "You're late," and later that morning, security footage showed Kevin sprinting from an empty hallway, screaming while something unseen followed inches behind him, and hospital records confirmed that room 214 was where the last patient died during the fire at exactly 2:02 a.m. And if this real story left you shaken, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Storyteller, because some patients never check out. Welcome to Storyteller, where true horror stories emerge from real reports and whispered police files. This chilling incident comes from a small town in northern Arizona, where in 2014 multiple residents claimed the same terrifying experience involving a desert rest stop that appears only at night. A college student named Ryan was driving home from Flagstaff when exhaustion forced him to pull into an unmarked rest area along Route 89, strangely well lit despite no sign on any map. Inside he noticed 3 other people sitting silently on benches, all staring straight ahead. When Ryan checked the restroom sink, the water ran black for a second before turning clear, and written faintly on the mirror were the words, "Do not fall asleep." Laughing nervously, he stepped outside to leave but realized his car wouldn't start and the road behind him had vanished into darkness. When he turned back, the people were standing now, closer, their faces sunken and cracked like dry earth, whispering that they'd stopped there years ago and never woke up. Panic set in as Ryan heard footsteps circling him and felt the ground vibrating like something massive moving beneath the sand. He shut his eyes and prayed until his car suddenly started, and when he sped away, the rest stop disappeared in his rearview mirror. The next day, Highway Patrol confirmed no such rest area existed and admitted several missing persons cases involved drivers last pinged in that exact stretch of desert. Locals still warn that if you see lights where none should be, keep driving. If this true American horror story disturbed you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Storyteller for more real nightmares hiding in plain sight. Welcome to Storyteller, where real horror stories are uncovered from witness reports and forgotten records. This unsettling case comes from rural Louisiana, where in 2009 several 911 calls described the same impossible event near a flooded bayou road. A nurse named Emily was driving home after a night shift when thick fog forced her to slow down and she saw a small boy standing barefoot in the middle of the road, soaked and shaking. When she stopped to help, he pointed silently toward the water and whispered, "My mom is still in there." As Emily followed him toward the bayou, her headlights began flickering and her phone lost signal. Suddenly the boy vanished and she heard knocking from beneath the water, hands pressing up through the surface, as if people were trapped below. Panic-stricken, she ran back to her car and sped away, but later returned with police who found no child, no footprints, and no signs of flooding, only an overturned car discovered submerged. bayou, records revealed that 3 years earlier a mother and child had drowned there during a flash flood, and the child's body was never recovered. After Emily's report, local authorities admitted receiving multiple similar calls over the years. They say if you hear your name whispered twice, don't answer the third time. Welcome to Storyteller, where real horror stories come to life. And this started in 2019 when I was house-sitting in a quiet cul-de-sac outside Boise, Idaho, the kind of place where nights stretch long and silence feels heavy. And every night at exactly 12:44 a.m. I heard my name whispered from the hallway, soft, careful, like someone testing the sound of it. And the first night I thought it was the pipes, the second night I thought it was my mind, but the third night the whisper came closer, right outside the bedroom door, and then sudden silence, so thick my ears rang, and I lay there counting my breaths, waiting, and the whisper returned again, slower this time, dragging my name out like it didn't want to let go. And when I finally opened the door, the hallway, and the family dog downstairs began growling at the ceiling, low and steady, refusing to move. And the next morning I found an old smoke detector in the guest room closet with batteries still warm, even though it hadn't been used in years. And that night at 12:44 the whisper came again, followed by 3 slow knocks on the wall. Knock, pause, knock, pause, knock, and a breath exhaled right behind my ear, and I froze as a voice barely louder than air whispered, "You heard me now." And every line, nothing but my own breathing, and then nothing at all. And when the lights snapped back on I was alone. But later I learned the previous owner had died in that house, calling out for help during a power outage, his voice never heard. And now whenever I'm alone, I leave the room, because I'm not waiting to hear it twice again. Welcome back to Storyteller, the channel where real American experiences turn into sleepless nights. And tonight's story comes from a quiet suburb outside Cleveland, Ohio. Named Rachel began noticing her dog growling at the hallway every night around 3:17 a.m. The same time her phone alarm once went off by mistake, and at first she brushed it off as shadows or stress until one night she woke up to the sound of slow clapping coming from the end of the hall, soft at first, then louder, perfectly timed. And when she checked the baby monitor in her son's room, the screen showed him sleeping peacefully while a tall, dark shape stood in the corner behind the crib, its hands coming together in a slow applause.